And we're live apparently. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. There's Colleges and Cannibals straight away with a hello, everyone. Hello, Colleges and Cannibals. Thanks very much for joining us. Oh, did we get a wee spike there on the YouTube thing? For anybody who's popping in, I think we're just a wee bit early as usual, but I just thought I'd pop on tonight just to fill you in a wee bit on details just with the June Book Club and so on, and just sort of where we're at. I suppose we've cancelled that for I suppose a day or two, hopefully. But as I said, our wee doggy's sort of terminally ill. It's my father's dog, to be honest with you. Is our Bonnie, and she's called Miss Bo Woofity, but her name's Bonnie, and so we're kind of looking after her, and we're sort of 6 days in, 6 days and 6 nights. So she had a bad a wee set of heart attacks on Sunday, and I basically the vets kind of wanted to straight away put her down, but she's not in pain, and we're kind of looking after her, and it's been interesting, to be honest with you. There's Babs saying evening doc, evening Babs, and Joseph, sorry about your buddy. Thank you, Joseph. Howdy CNC says Babs. Anyway, just to all of you out there, folks, I've got a bunch of messages from you on the channel, and I haven't responded to them, but I'll be responding to them all personally. But just want to say thank you very much. For your kind words, very much appreciated. And we're looking after the wee thing, and I don't know. For the last few nights, we've thought she's going to just pass in her sleep, and each morning we wake up and she's a bit perky, and she's taking water and a little bit of food, but she's not. I don't think she's going to do basically. But yeah, she's I suppose defying all expectations, and she's such a gentle, loving wee thing. So she's a companion pet for my father, and he's not able to look after her, so we brought her here, and we have our two dogs. But I've known her the longest, if you like. So she was my girl for a long time. Excuse me. And Bonnie, the wee dog in question, was actually a ring bearer at my wedding. So we have photos of her in a wee sort of suited and booted, as they said, at Mosenden Temple. So there we go. So I just wanted to say I'll probably not be on for too long tonight, folks. But just to thank you very much for your kind comments. Just in terms of the June Book Club, everything was going swimmingly. But I honestly thought that the last episode that I did, in all honesty, I thought I was a bit down and a bit deflated, and I don't think I had done my job properly. If you see what I mean. So I just thought rather than me sort of trying to have a go at this, and it's just because we're sort of setting up all night with the wee doggy to make sure she gets water and stuff like that and looking after her. And it's a bit of, I suppose, I know, I think people maybe think it's a bit silly to do this with a dog, but it's probably a bit of an Irish thing, I suppose. But no, all's going well. Morning, all, says Brad, and uh, everyone's saying hello there. And Brad says, "Hope you're handling it well, Doc." Yes, it's not a bother, Brad. It's very much attached to the wee thing, but it's just about she is passing away. She's going to pass. It's just about giving her the right care, really. And it does take a bit of time and effort. I suppose it's her legs have gone on one side and she can't really walk. If you see what I mean. But we've decked her out, and she's been looked after like a queen. And it's no, it's been really nice having the dog up here for the last few days. So basically, since I got married, the dog has kind of become my dad's sole companion, really. And so they're like that. So it's as much as we're looking after the wee doggy, etc., etc. I suppose there's a few other issues to do with that. And I suppose I need to keep a wee eye on my dad at the minute as well, because he's not handling it very well. I think he's very upset. But family first, Doc. That's right, Brad. And yeah, what harm is it? I suppose to give a wee dog a bit of care like that. We're enjoying looking after her, to be honest with you. Um, the spring is kind of just hit here, and the skies are very blue. All the insects are back. The birds are out chirping away in the morning, and it's been lovely here. And I suppose not really getting out much the last week, but we've really enjoyed looking after the wee dog, and it's been quite peaceful and relaxing. And we don't get a lot of peace and quiet around here, unfortunately. Colleges and Cannibals says the last science fiction I read about dogs was Lives of the Monster Dogs by Kirsten Backus. Ah, sort of science fiction. I thought this was kind of I was thinking about what should we talk about tonight, and I was thinking about science fiction dogs, to be honest with you. Just thinking about our own Miss Bo Wiffatiti, as we call her. Um, I'll tell you what. You know what? I'm going to actually scribble a few of these ideas and suggestions down, any stories like that, because there's not too many. There are some good ones, I think. Um, and my favorite one about dogs, and from a science fiction point of view, um, would be Olaf Stapleton's Sirius, as in the dog star Sirius. Um, which I let me see. Now I actually had a copy of it and I gave it to somebody, sadly. And wished I hadn't, but I read it about 2 years ago, I think. And anybody who doesn't know Olaf Stapleton, I think if you look at our A to Z videos, he's in there. Olaf Stapleton is a science fiction writer of note, I suppose. In some ways, the way some people, I can't remember who was it who said that they talked about H.G. Wells working in a similar kind of field to his peers, but being above and beyond them. There's something about Olaf Stapleton's work that's unique within science fiction writing, and the two books in particular, called, is it Star Maker and First and Last Men? Is it Last and First Men? I always mix things like that up. Hounds of Tyndalus is a perennial. Yeah, let's get me scribbling here. I haven't read too many. The interesting thing is, I suppose, those are the books that Olaf Stapleton's really famous for. Sirius, I think I've described it as it's a kind of Frankenstein for dogs. Yeah, it's a really good book, I have to say. And if you know Frankenstein, really substitute a large German Shepherd, basically. I think if that's what Sirius is, for the monster. And it's a very endearing, and it's a kind of a little bit interesting, and I'll use the word interesting in some ways. But for anybody who hasn't checked it out, it's in the Science Fiction Masterworks series, and it's one of those ones that if you wander into HMV, that kind of thing, you can get the way they do two books for a tenner or something like that. It's usually amongst those. That's where I picked it up. But Sirius is a really good one. I haven't read either of those Colleges and Cannibals. Last science fiction. I'm going to scribble these down because I'd actually like to do a program for the station on sci-fi dogs. I think that'll be quite interesting. Lives of the Monster Dogs. Because what was it we used to have? Was it Digby, the biggest dog in the world? I wrote Mosher dogs there. Munster. Kirsten Am I reading that? Kirsten, yeah. Bacchus. And Block's Hounds of Tyndalus. The First and Last Men for many people is their first and last Stapleton. They're tough books, I think. You're quite right. Colleges. First and Last Men. Thank you. There I believe that one of them is that, and it possibly is First and Last Men. Wouldn't it be Star Maker? Is it Star Maker? Has been recently made into a film, I believe, or some kind of cinematic experience. The Anubis Gates by Tim Powers is great fun. Thank you. I'll tell you my other favorite one, actually. Is a short story, and the first audiobook that we did for the station was Philip K. Dick's Beyond Lies the Wub, which I love, and is a great short story. Let me see if I got it around here somewhere. I've done a lot of shifting of books here lately. Oh, I'm not seeing it handy at the minute. We've moved all sorts of stuff around here. It isn't the story that I wanted to do. Actually, in terms of starting off with an audiobook for the station, I really wanted to go with a short story by Philip K. Dick. My favorite one by him, and arguably, again, I think I'll be doing I'll be doing a video on some of my all-time favorite short stories. But right up there, possibly the greatest one ever, I think, is a story called Rug. And if anybody doesn't know it, I think it's close to becoming public domain. And as soon as it is, I'll certainly have a go at it. Rug, that's the Rug. Brad says, I've got a busy one today with my volunteer work, so I won't be commenting much. Lucky you, Mum, but I'll be listening while I prep. No worries, Brad. As I said, I don't think I'll be on too long tonight. Partly wanted to come on and thank everyone for their kind comments about the dog and so on. And just to explain a wee bit, I suppose I better get round to doing that a wee moment about the June Book Club and just to catch up how we'll get that sorted. But yeah, Rug is a book, is a short story, sorry, that absolutely changed the way I think about animals of all kinds. And for those who don't know it, it's a short story about, and it's kind of presented in a science fiction way, and it's about a dog and I suppose its master's relationship with these aliens that come to its house once a week, and what happens to the dog. And if you read it, you'll get it. I don't want to say too much more about it. It's not a very long story, and it's a very, very sad story, I think. But it really is an eye opener, I think, for me. And for years and years, I've always thought about how animals perceive things. So it's a very early story by Philip K. Dick. And I'm sure it's very easily. It shouldn't be too hard to get a hold of a copy of it somewhere online. But from my point of view, really hoping to stick to just trying to keep myself legal with the stories that we look at. So Rug is not public domain as far as I know yet, but I think it should be very soon. So there we go. Absolutely brilliant story about dogs. The Anubis Gates is one that I haven't read either, Colleges and Cannibals, but I did see, I think I managed to, I sort of go around collecting bits of art, science fiction art for the station. Generally to see it, just sort of hoard it basically, to see if we can need anything for, or if we're going to need anything for making a video in particular. So I'm pretty sure I saw that as in recently as in a cover for the Anubis Gates. And I think it was a good one. And I think it was one of the Dune artists, actually. Who did the cover? Let me just have a wee look. Because I thought it was a rather good cover. Let me see. No, there we go. No, not seeing it at all, actually. But yeah, I think that, I don't know, who was it? I think the one that I was thinking on it was either a John Schuenher cover, or else it was I don't know. Oh, it was one of the Dune artists, something like that. There we go. But yeah, for those who don't know, I suppose a book. Sirius is a really interesting book, and it's kind of a wartime book. And if you haven't read it, if you're into your comparative literature kind of thing, it would be a fantastic book to read next to Frankenstein. And I read the two. I actually read Sirius not. I read Frankenstein again just not too long after reading Sirius. It really kind of got me, just thinking, this is an awful, Frankenstein. And I wonder just, the two books together would be worthy of a good look at, I suppose, in terms of study, But there we go. So no, in terms of the just all things dogs, this is the dog house, I suppose, as we like to call it that. And if you know a wee bit about me, I don't know if many people know this, but there's a few reasons why we're called the dog house. And I suppose one of them is to do with the classical school of philosophy of being a cynic, if you like, which means to be like a dog. Woof woof. And the other one, of course, is that within science fiction itself, 2000 AD's, one of 2000 AD's very famous characters is Strontium Dog. And within the Strontium Dog universe, there's a space station, of course, and it's known as the Dog House. So we're trying to make a few little kind of in-joke science fiction references, if you like, about that kind of thing. So that's why we kind of, and of course, the real fact is that my dogs live in here with where I work. So this is actually where they hang around and chill. And we have two dog beds just to the left of me here. we kind of have a sort of bed that they use as well, you know. So it's just this is our doghouse very much, and so and yeah. So apologies, folks, in terms of the June book club. Um, I think we'll probably be at this a few more days, but we won't be running with the June book club on Sunday again, and it's simply a, I'm not getting the correct amount of time to do it properly, and b, I'm not getting much sleep at the moment. So it's a combination of those two factors, and sort of more that I'm one of those people that be kind of more than willing, but I've been told to get some sleep recently, so I'm under orders from my better half, if you like. So apart, I do apologise for everyone within the June book club, and we've hit such a crucial little part of the story where House Atreides really is just about, it's the fall of House Atreides, really important in terms of the action of the story. And so hopefully, all things considered, fingers crossed, we'll be back to normal with the June book club next week. Um, and as I said, we'll just carry on as normal, hopefully. But it's been nice to get a few wee comments about the book club, and not everybody always sort of um, pops in or watches the thing live, if you know what I mean. Some people are picking up on it. So I've got a nice few wee comments from people there this week, just in relation to the wee dog Bonnie, but also just saying that they're enjoying the commentary on the June novel, and so the feedback's been nice, folks, and I do appreciate it. And we have had some good feedback on the wee Tiger video as well. So I think we're coming up to just about 100 views. So yeah, well, just having a little think about my next video at the minute. And as I said, some of my videos end up quite long, so I'm having a wee consideration, and I'm thinking about doing a little bit of stuff on some of the cinema that I grew up on in Northern Ireland. I suppose that the science fiction that I would have went to see in the cinema at a very specific period. I've just watched Kenneth Branagh's Belfast last week with my wife, and we weren't too. I know it's getting a lot of praise and so on, and we weren't too impressed by it at all. To be honest with you, we thought it was as much as we understand it's meant to be a child's kind of viewpoint of the troubles in the at that, I suppose, that point in the late 60s. I just thought it was very twee and glossy and fairy tale like and unrealistic as hell. But I suppose that's not kind of the type of film that Kenneth Branagh was trying to make, was it? Hmm. But yeah, so particularly within a certain period of cinema, I'll do a lot of talking basically about my science fiction books, but I'm a big fan of science fiction cinema. Although I'd have to say that science fiction kind of has died, or not science fiction, cinema has died a bit of a death for me. Excuse me, you know. And it wasn't June that killed it for me, but it's just kind of been life lately. That the last 3 4 years I haven't been going to the cinema much at all. Brad's in there. Take as long as you need, Doc. We will be happy to wait. No problem, Brad. Thank you very much. I'm quite keen to get on with it myself, and this has all just been a bit unexpected, I suppose. And oddly enough, the day that last week there, where the wee dog had its heart attack, etc. And my dad phoned us up, and we had to run off to the vets and all of these kind of things. That was actually my wife's birthday, so we were supposed to have gone out for dinner and gotten ourselves out a bit. If you know what I mean, just we haven't been out too much in a while. So we were looking, yeah, we had a bit of a day planned, and I said no, we're quite adaptable and we've adjusted a wee bit, and I think the wee dogs we're enjoying looking after. It's nice to dote on a wee animal like that, and she has a very unusual little Jack Russell, I have to say. Yeah, but yeah, it's no. I thought we have a good. I think with the June book club, it's good to keep the momentum going. The little, I suppose, doing it twice a week. It's a big book, and from my point of view, I just wanted to get through June itself. I suppose because I keep returning to it, and I had a wee bit of a consideration of running with the June book club and hitting all 6 books. Um, and in that sense, whenever it comes to June, I'm kind of always keen to get through it because I'm kind of biting to get at the I think June Messiah is a very very good book, and I tend to be chomping at the bit to get at it, um, because I suppose, and to analyze it in the way we're doing at the minute, I wouldn't have done that before, not to that level of detail. And I really enjoyed June Messiah on a political level, and I really enjoy it as especially as an inversion of the heroic themes, if you like. Um, we were just having a wee thought about. Babs had sent a wee comment to me recently there, just about considering Duncan, Idaho, in terms of the patterns of the hero that Lord Raglan, for example, talks about. And yeah, there's a so we can't really. I was actually thinking about that in the if and I'll bring this up again at the June Book Club, I suppose. Not wanting to sort of detract from it, but just sort of, not that we're running through a chapter or anything, but I suppose all topics are open. But I was actually thinking about that, and that if Duncan, Idaho is a complete inversion or even separation from the path of the hero, if you like, that in that sense, and if Frank Herbert, and he's on record as saying this, planned the first three Dune books as for them, he was planning ahead, but he conceived the whole thing initially as a trilogy, and the first book, Dune, is your setup, and it's not just, I suppose, setting up the Dune universe, the narrative, all of this stuff, setting up the hero, setting the reader up for the fall, for the trick. And the deceit comes very quick in Dune Messiah. And I'm really looking forward to getting to that, especially getting to chat to people who are invested in these books. Because again, whenever I did all my kind of work on Dune, nobody had a one jot of a interest in it whatsoever. So I'm really looking forward to that, because it is going to be the inversion of the classic science fiction hero, and not just the science fiction hero, all kinds of heroic ideals, I suppose. And it made me think that if Duncan, Idaho, in terms of what Babs was saying, is an inversion of perhaps Raglan's 22 steps. Let me see. Raglan's about here. Oh, yes, I had an idea about something, by the way. I had him around here. There he is, Lord Raglan. And so if that's the case, it made me think actually that the last part of the heroic journey is the apotheosis and death of the hero. Yeah, I mean, I've just flipped it open. Here's I'll give you a wee example if anybody's not too sure what I'm talking about. Lord Raglan is the author of this book here, The Hero. And to give it its full title, it's The Hero, A Study in Tradition, Myth and Drama. And I think when's it from? Lord Raglan. I'll give you his biography, by the way, because it's quite important to not mix him up with his more famous relative. So this Raglan, the mythographer, born in 1885, educated at Eton and Sandhurst, joined the Grenadier Guards in 1905, and in 1913 was attached to the Egyptian army, serving with the 9th Sudanese as the district commissioner in the Mongolia province. He joined the army in Palestine in 1918, spent over 2 years among the Arabs of Transjordan. In 1921, he succeeded his father and retired, and now lives in the family estate in Monmouthshire, of which county he is Lord Lieutenant. Lord Raglan was president of the anthropological section of the British Association in 1933 and the Folklore Society from 1945 to 47. His publications include articles on the Latoku tribe of Sudan and the Arabs of Transjordan, Yocasta's Crime, and the Origins of Religion, published by the Thinkers Library, and The Science of Peace, How Came Civilization, and Death and Rebirth. So some of his works there. And when I'm saying, I think this published this is 36 or something like that. Yeah, this is first published in 1936. The edition that I have actually has a preface, a new preface by Lord Raglan, because I've got the Thinkers Library edition, which is from 1948. So it's not a particularly well regarded book in terms of mythography. But in terms of Dune, etc., and all of those kind of things, Lord Raglan has the 22 steps of the hero. Just to show you, there we go. This is what we're talking about. Don't know if you can see. I'll move in this bit of the page a wee bit. There we go. That's the first 10 down there. And up on the other side there, you'll see steps 11 to 22. And then he begins with Oedipus. And so he takes each hero step by step through this ritualistic journey, if you like. And simply put, he said then he believes that all heroes kind of conform to this pattern. Really, what Raglan's done is analyzed Oedipus and found a pattern and gone, okay, here's the pattern. He fits 22. I believe it. He's the only hero that fits that pattern, all of it. And so if we think about in terms of what happens to Duncan Idaho, he's basically killed pretty early on, isn't he? And I suppose in terms of the pattern that the last steps of the hero would be he meets with a mysterious death, and it says often at the top of a hill, his children, if any, do not succeed him. His body is not buried, but nevertheless he has one or more holy sepulchres. There we go. And I was just thinking, if we have kind of the death of Duncan Idaho, and arguably somebody's going to grab his DNA, it's a form of apotheosis and death at the beginning of Dune, and then we see the character return, and we have various different iterations of him. I think it's very interesting. We might have to reverse Lord Raglan's pattern and see, as we go through the Dune series as an individual, does he fit into it? The other famous Lord Raglan, by the way, I'm sure maybe some of you have Googled him already, but if you don't know, that the reason why I wanted to clearly identify this Lord Raglan from his ancestor is his ancestor is the guy in charge of who ordered the charge of the Light Brigade twice, I believe. So an absolute bit of a dick. In terms of this guy and this guy's work, this is he's British Empire and stinks of British Empire and his British Empire aristocracy. So often the nature of these guys is that not to disparage the man, but just that general kind of work isn't often brilliant, I suppose. His work, this wee book's interesting, and I think a lot of people put it down. But in terms of certain things, I think it's really, really good. So the heroes that he looks at in this, if anybody's interested, are Oedipus, Theseus, Romulus, Heracles, Perseus, Jason, Bellerophon, Pelops, Asclepios, Dionysus, Apollo, Zeus, Joseph, Moses, Elijah, Watu Gunung, Ni Kang, Sigurd or Siegfried, and Lou Logos. If I'm not pronouncing that one correctly. There's a Welsh one. Apologies, my Welsh is non-existent. Lou. Hugh. Hogus, possibly. Might be a Hugh. Double L. I must look that up. What's the double L in Welsh? Arthur and Robin Hood. So there we go, folks. But yeah, it was an interesting wee thing. And just as I said, Babs had suggested, if ultimately wherever Herbert was possibly going with that, if Idaho is an inversion of the hero, would the steps of the hero that Raglan and I suppose thereby also Joseph Campbell's hero of 1,000 faces, that kind of thing, the monomyth idea, that must also possibly be inverted. It's interesting. Somebody asked me about hard science fiction the other week, folks, and I was kind of talking about, I honestly don't know very much if there's a bit of really any difference at all between hard and soft science fiction, that it all just sort of blends softly together in some ways. And I was kind of racking my brains a bit about what did I consider, was there anything that kind of fell into that category? And I suppose with the likes of the Asimov Clarke stories and the various kinds of stories that we get in American magazines that ultimately translate onto the screen, through things like Star Trek, and even up ahead with Star Trek The Next Generation, shows like this, what we kind of call the American engineer paradigm, if you like, where it's and I suppose I suppose if you wanted to put it simply, it's often about a bit of teamwork in space, while we compensate and do a bit of engineering and thinking and tinkering, pardon me, and a little bit of the Presbyterian fixation, and everything's okay. Mm. So I had a good old think about, of all the things that I've read over the years, what struck me as particularly hard science fiction, and some of the Stragatsky brothers stuff comes across that way, but it's so funny and bizarre that you wouldn't maybe think of it that way. But in terms of something that I'd read before, and I couldn't go into the I couldn't actually tell you individually, about these stories, because it's been a long. I read this book in the 90s, and I'll just tell you what it is. And in terms of what we were talking about in regards to what's hard science fiction, this little collection of stories is probably one of the things that I think has come closest. It's a collection. I'll just give you the title here. I'll show it to you. It's a lovely, beautiful cover on this. Wonder who did it. A collection of the finest in Soviet science fiction, edited, edited and translated by Mira Ginsburg. It's called The Ultimate Threshold, and it's not a particularly thick little tome. And it's a particular era of science fiction from uh, the Soviet Union. Let me see. Mira Ginsburg is well known, just give you her biography here, for putting together this little collection, is well known for her translations from Russian and Yiddish, amongst them Mikhail Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita and Heart of a Dog. And there we got dog story possibly there. And Yevgeny Zamyatin's The Dragon. Her translations of Bashevis's singer, Isaac Bashevis singer Isaac Babel, and others have appeared in many collections and periodicals. So this is a wee collection of stories ranging from, let me see, it looks like it's really just sort of 60s era Soviet Union, early 60s right up to, I think the latest one here is probably 1968. So it's an era sort of comparable to what's emerging, I suppose. And I suppose out of the magazine era, the golden age, things like the new wave, at that kind of era. Just some of the authors here, just to give you there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 little stories here. And I'd never really read any Soviet era science fiction before I got this book. I think I picked this up in 1990. Oh no, 1998 or so, I think. Authors include Henrik Althoff, Gleb Anfilov, Anatoly Danaprov. Let's see, we've got Vladimir Grigoriev, Olga Larionova, Herman Maximov, Roman Podolny, Igor Roshakovatsky, let's see, Vladimir Sherbakov. Excuse my pronunciation of these names. Ilya Varshavsky, and then we have Mikhail Yabtsev and Yeremy Parnov. And arguably, I've sort of gone on about how much I love the Stragatsky brothers science fiction books, and they're really up there with the best, I think, and sit very comfortably with Philip K. Dick and Alfred Bester and that kind of writing. It was this little collection of short stories that made me decide to investigate the Stragatsky brothers, and they're very good. And not that engineer paradigm, but very much the keep your stuff working. I don't know. It was very, very good. So it was just we've been asked, and it was the only thing that rang a bell, I suppose, in terms of, and it was just the blurb on the back of this. I don't know how easy this kind of little book would be to get. It's a really good anthology. A loyal and charming robot commits suicide in an effort to please his human master. A cosmonaut returns to Earth, but how? For hours before, his rocket had crashed into a fiery star. A civilization controlled by logic confronts a strange, imperfect planet whose inhabitants are moved by unnecessary things like love and beauty, and 10 other tales touching on time and space, man and machines, death and immortality, matter and antimatter, gravity, cybernetics, and the creation of life. A cornucopia of the very best of Soviet science fiction, the the freshest, freest kind of writing in Russia today. Times change, eh? But there we go. In terms of sci-fi, that's a great wee set of stories, and it really is very. To me, it was very different. Reading it way back then, So I'd highly recommend that wee book. The Final Frontier. Then context. Oh, here, sorry, I missed something there. Hang on, colleges. Sorry, I'll run back. Well, if Idaho is a reverse, then he did meet a miraculous ending as opposed to birth, even if Brian did write it. I wasn't even going there, but yeah, well, he suppose he has a bit of he's a Kwisatz Haderach, isn't he? The Final Frontier. Then. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I'm missing context. Star Trek: The Final Frontier. Possibly colleges. But anyway, here's to everybody. I'm going to take some fluids. Cheers to you all. I hope you're all keeping well, by the way. Oh, the ultimate threshold, the final frontier. Got you. Thank you very much. I see what you mean. Yeah, the final. Space is not the final frontier. Yeah, I always used to think about that. I always thought that one of the best Trek movies was Star Trek 6. I'm trying to remember. Was it The Undiscovered Country? Isn't it? And they kind of where Star Trek does a bit of Shakespeare. I think that's a good fun episode, actually. Probably the last of the good Trek movies with the original cast, I suppose. Yeah. It made sense in a wee way, Babs, but it got me thinking about the character, about the whole reverse thing. It got me thinking about what's the character? Is it Saul and Rachel? Hang on. In Hyperion Cantos. What's that? Sorry, just to make sure I remember the character's name correctly. Where are we? Hyperion. Do like Hyperion if anybody. The priest. Yeah, I was right actually. It's Saul Weintraub is the character's name I was trying to remember. The Scholar's Tale from Hyperion, I suppose, with the daughter aging backwards. It made me a little bit. The River Leith's taste is bitter. That's got to be a Keats reference, hasn't it? I'm pretty sure. Bear with me a wee second. Keats. What is it? Ode to a Nightingale. Ode on Ode to a Nightingale. Leithwards. Leith is a river in Hades. There you go. What is it? My heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains 1 minute past, and Leithwards had sunk. No, there you go. I was thinking on something else. Sorry, yeah, I'm thinking on a different poem, aren't I? I was thinking about. Yeah. It's a very interesting wee set of books, actually, or wee set of short stories. So it's just something that I thought I'd grab off the shelf, but I still hadn't really been able to really think of anything much else that I would consider hard science fiction or science fiction or soft science fiction, But yeah. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a wee chat about. We'll get some wee things up about what I would call the Strand Road cinema films for myself, and I would have wanted to have seen a lot of science fiction films as a kid. Excuse me, in this particular cinema in Belfast, and so we were just having a wee chat about Belfast the other day, and just in relation to where you kind of went for your science fiction. Either the cinema or basically comics and books, that sort of thing. So the Strand Road cinema is quite a reasonably famous, I think. I'd say. Well, it survived the Troubles anyway. I'm pretty sure. Really good cinema that was in Belfast for a long time. I'm not too sure if it's still there or not. And The other place was the comic books and secondhand bookshops and model shops that were in a place called Smithfield, which is a market area of Belfast, right in the city centre. Excuse me. So we have a couple of reasonably famous science fiction writers. I suppose from arguably that new wave era, I suppose they'd be called James White, isn't it? And sorry, gotta stop doing that. Robert Bob Shaw. Um, and my understanding is that they're quite well known in America. Apparently, um, is it the Sector General books by White, and Bob Shaw's got a few sort of quirky science fiction stories. I think I might have one. Hang on a wee second here, just do we see. Oh, I have brought. Oh, there's James White. Anyway, all right, Mr. Shaw. I don't got one of your books up here. So much rubbish. Bear with me a wee second, folks. Just see if I can find this. I do have one of his books. No, I can't see it at the minute. I'll have a wee hunt for it for next time. But I'm looking to put together a little bit of these stuff on these guys. That's James White there. And Code Blue Emergency, this book. So the Sector General Hospital series is what he's known for. And it's meant to have a pretty good... there's stories in 2000 AD that are based on this. And there's a level of, I suppose, parts of things like Babylon 5 take some stuff from this as well. And I'm kind of interested to pick up some of these other books by James White: Aliens Among Us, All Judgment Fled, Ambulance Ship, Major Operation, Star Surgeon, Hospital Station, Sector General, Star Healer, and Futures Past. This one's from the 80s, I suppose, 1987. So apparently not very well known over here in Northern Ireland, but apparently he sold these books pretty well over in America. And so he was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and resides there. He spent his early years in Canada. His first story was printed in 1953, and he has since published well-received short stories, novellas, and novels, but he's best known for the Sector General series, which deals with the difficulties involved in running a hospital that caters to many radically different life forms. And interestingly, I suppose, from Northern Ireland, that this is an example of pacifistic science fiction. James White's a pacifist. I must have a wee look at Bob Shaw as well in tandem with him, because we were talking about the engineering paradigm, I suppose. And as much as I don't think this is much more honest, good old fashioned science fiction in that sense. Both him and Bob White, I think, or sorry, Bob Shaw, were involved in both working at, I suppose, the major elements of industry within Belfast, which was Shorts aircraft manufacturers and the Harland and Wolff shipyard. So it's interesting that these men are kind of only real science fiction legacy in Northern Ireland, and not really much so in Northern Ireland, as there's I make a wee note that Northern Ireland doesn't produce science fiction at all. But we did have a couple of guys for a wee while there. So I'm chatting away, guys, and as I said, just blabbing away about a few wee things that I can think of. If you do have any wee questions for me, fire away. I'm going to take some fluids here. And I've been thinking about the other thing I suppose I've been thinking about is maybe trying to do a few. Some people had suggested doing a few top tens, that kind of thing. Although I'm not a big fan of such things, I thought, yeah, there's enough variation within science fiction that we'll maybe put together a few lists of I suppose what we think of as quality material within different types of science fiction. So we thought we'd start having a wee look on the station at and we'll open these wee nights up, actually, keep them for the Science Fiction Fridays, I think, and give us some topics to discuss. So I've definitely been thinking about looking at some science fiction radio shows, science fiction comedies, and in particular, what really would like to look at my favorite comics and graphic novels, stories that fall within those realms, because I do have I'm not a big comic book reader anymore, since I stopped buying 2000 AD, but I do occasionally go out and hunt the odd good graphic novel or sort of collection of old comic stuff, I suppose. Something that I picked up not too long ago, I suppose. Just while I'm on that train of thought, I'd love to show you these. I think there's meant to be three volumes in total, but there's two at the minute. And for anybody who's a Judge Dredd fan, and the amount of Judge Dredd that's out there to buy is ridiculous. There's basically 45 years of 2008 Judge Dredd appearing in 2008 weekly strips, and then you've got the Judge Dredd the magazine and all sorts of things. I will say this, that just to let you know, we're talking about favorite stories. My favorite Judge Dredd story is called well, I've got probably two or three, but my favorite Judge Dredd story is called the Bonnie Crickle Case. Um, it's a story that ignites a whole lot of things. It's a really, really good story, and it kind of ends with tight boots. And if anybody knows it, I wouldn't spoil it, but the Bonnie Crickle Case is kind of the beginning where Judge Dredd stops being a total fascist, because that's what he is. um, but the other one is there's two other Judge Dredd stories that I think are hilarious and the pure comic genius. And my one of my all time favorite Judge Dredd stories is called "It Pays to Be Mental," about this guy who walks around Mega City One, and he is certified mental, and has a wee card, and it's a fourth wall breaking kind of story. Where the mental guy talks to the readership of 2080, etc. And there's a sequel to it called "It Still Pays to Be Mental." The other one is called "Love Story," where it's about a woman who falls in love with Judge Dredd and ends up having what's called Dredd syndrome. So these kind of stories are just to show you these are the daily dreads. Here we go, and these are. I suppose lovely reprints of the Daily Dreads used to appear in, I think it's the Daily Star, if I'm not mistaken, British newspaper. Excuse me. So these are, I suppose, like the American. Oh, sorry about that snapping. Oh, but like the American funnies, they're panels from newspapers. Not wanting to wreck the book here. Hang on. There we go. Certain artists draw these, and for example, one week or for each day in the newspaper, you'd get three of these panels, and you'd probably get a small Judge Dredd story over the whole week. And these ones, I suppose, written by John Wagner, Alan Grant, Richard Burton, and the artists in particular, Ron Smith, Ian Gibson, who's phenomenal, Mike McMahon, John Higgins, Steve Dillon, and Brett Ewins. On the second volume here, we have art by Ian Gibson, Barry Kitson, Steve Dillon, and Mike Collins. But probably my favorite Dredd artist is Ian Gibson, and that's his work there. And he has an incredible style. He's the Halo Jones artist as well. You'll find him in all over 2080s work. Has an incredible style about him, There's Bob saying, dinner, have a great night, y'all. See you at the next book club. We'll see. We'll have hopefully be back with the book club on Thursday. Babs will not be running this Sunday, just because I'll have a bit of work to catch up, and may the maker bless your path. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll be back with the book club, not this Sunday, so we're just going to try and recharge our batteries this week, and we should be back to normal next week. So we'll get back on with that. But thanks very much for joining us, Babs. I'm only going to run to 10 o'clock tonight, folks, because as you can probably tell, I'm a wee bit a bit fatigued, etc., etc. But there you go. Just a way of just to open this up. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, this man's a hell of an artist, and his style is incredible. And there's another actual story, by the way. Sorry, I just popped into my head. I think it's from Judge Dredd the magazine, and it's called "Is it the Return of the Taxidermist?" Oh goodness gracious! There's Love Story there, isn't that it? Looks like it. Yeah. By Vera Pelcher. She's a civilian that wants to go along a ride along with Judge Dredd, and she falls in love with him. Just reading off this, the Lawmaster speed top 180 as we screamed into Pizza Plaza. I clung to the judge, feeling the taut steel of his muscles rippling beneath my finger. It's incredibly funny. especially when Judge Dredd kisses her. But if anybody's not checked these out, I picked these up not too long ago, and there's absolute loads of stories in them. There's a good weight to them, and I don't think they're particularly expensive. Yeah, and they're a particular thing for. I said you'll not find these really. Not too many of these would appear in 2000 AD. And they really do sort of look at the craziness of Mega City 1. But the Daily Dreads, I suppose, one of those things, there's that many Judge Dredd stories out there, and I've read them for a long time. I wouldn't go out and sort of buy just, I'll just keep buying all these sort of reissues of them. But these are really worth having. There's something quite special, I think. The absolutely the only reason to read the Daily Star newspaper. Let me just put these back. There we go. All right. There we go. So that's our Daily Dreads. I haven't really picked up too much else in terms of the comic books lately. I have a whole pile of something that I really want to do a bit of work on, guys. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Lone Wolf and Cub, but we've got a whole bundle of these old kind of Strontium Drog reprints, etc. The ones that I think we talked about, these that they're, as much as it's great to get these really old stories again, have a wee read through them, their colouring is appalling, which is really sad to see, I have to say. And I know we've got a few, there's David Segovia saying hello to everybody, a few sort of Batman Judge Dredd crossover fans. What's this one? Die Laughing. And again, I don't have too many of these anymore. And there's the other, book one of two. I've got them in two different, that's the other one. Die Laughing. Judgment in Gotham, I think. And I must check out. I think somebody was saying there's a third one. Look what I've just found. I've just found this sitting here, which is, as you can see, there's a guide to the solar eclipse 1999. This is the one that happened in Cornwall, I suppose. Well, I went to see it in Cornwall. Where was it I went to? Camborne, that's it. I went to Camborne to see it. It's an interesting little thing. This came with your goggles and so on. The most bizarre thing happened when I was at that solar eclipse. The most bizarre thing I've possibly ever seen a human being do to themselves. I'll tell you about it just for a giggle, if you like. We're invited to a farm for an outdoor sort of party, and I'd hooked up with like a friend from Canada, and a friend from Ireland, and a friend from Liverpool, and a friend from London, kind of gone down. We hooked up with these people, and so the eclipse I think was at 11:11 or something like that, and we'd been invited over to this farm for a bit of a party while we waited for the eclipse, and so we're sitting around all these campfires and having a bit of introducing ourselves and chatting to everybody and thanking them for inviting us around to the wee party. And we had our own vehicle and we'd head off. It was one of those kind of things everybody's going to go together. And there's a guy sitting there, just to get the idea that there's like a wee campfires here. It is a proper farm. And he has a wood hatchet. How should I put this? Hang on a wee second. If you imagine a piece of wood and you do that, with a hatchet, and the hatchet stuck in the bit of wood. What this guy did was he totally spoiled my day for me. He said he looked at everybody there and says, "Do you want to see something cool? Watch this." And he hit himself in the head, right, with the hatchet stuck in the wood and the plank still there. And he hit himself in the head with the hatchet, thinking that the piece of wood that the hatchet was stuck in would, protect him. And the hatchet went right through. And he split his head right open with a hatchet, and blood and everybody just went, why did you do that? And one of the most, very surreal moments in my life. And it's the main memory that sticks with me from going down there, making all that effort and all that trip, and you couldn't really see the eclipse that well. But I'll never forget this Cornish guy going, "Watch me," and he stuck a hatchet into his head, thinking that the wood split through the axe might split through the wood. Absolutely appalling thing. Um, let me see, folks. Um, yeah, so the ones that I was thinking on in particular, I'm looking to put a wee kind of episode together on this. Um, but there's a couple of comic books and graphic novels that are outstanding for me within the science fiction world, and really quite important to it. And I suppose that quite a lot of them are very well known these days. Things like V for Vendetta, The Adventures of Luther Arkwright, stuff like that. I've kind of lost out on a long time ago, or not kept up with, if you excuse me. So I've been kind of having a wee sort of sniff around some of that material for a while. I'm interested to find out that there's been new stories. For example, there's Luther Arkwright stories that I wasn't aware of. And I think I even found out that there's been a couple more Elric stories that I wasn't too sure about that. But there we go. So if you've any, I'm going to sign off in about 5 or 6 minutes, folks. If you've any wee comments or questions for me, fire away. As I said, I'm just going to pop on tonight for a wee quick chat. I hadn't really prepared too much, but I just wanted to really just to sort of give everybody an update on the June Book Club, and just to pass on my thanks, as I said, to everybody for their messages regarding our Bonnie. It was really appreciated, and just sorry for the bit of disruption that we have at the minute with the station, but we're hoping to get back at our usual perky selves and bring you a wee bit more sort of organized science fiction content and so on. There's one other wee thing I thought that I might show you actually just before we go. And when we're talking about comics, as I said, I haven't bought too many over the recent years. Um, the most recent comic book that I have picked up would be I think we talked about Halo Jones recently. I treated myself to a new set of Halo Jones books. Um, for those who don't know me, I love my Mad Max, and we've got Mad Max game up there. And the recent film, I was a big. I'm not often would I say I'm a fan of something. I was a big fan of it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a cinematic masterpiece, Mad Max Fury Road, and I can't believe why it didn't. Where I suppose the Oscars worth kind of went out the window at that point, where someone had clearly evolved action filmmaking. But I picked up this, and this is now I think this is a version Mad Max Fury Road. I think this came out as a set of individual comics, I believe. My understanding is that if you pick them up in this version, this one has an introduction by Mark Sexton, that you got a little extra tale at the back. These are the tales from the Fury Road. So the genuine, and also even with the computer game, I suppose the expanded narrative explains a few things and makes things make a bit more sense in and around the new Mad Max Fury Road film. So and I also have a rather nice art book from it because just quite impressed by some of the people that were working on it. But if anybody is into their comics, I suppose that's the Mad Max Fury Road from Vertigo, and I said that's like a prelude to the film, and is very good. And I think almost everything in terms of very little merch. I suppose I've got a Funko Pop, a couple of Mad Max Funko Pops downstairs, and I'm not a particular merch person, but there seldom seems to be much merchandise associated with the Mad Max films. But what there is quite good, you know. Dave says, colleges and cannibals saying, good to see you again, Doc, and the rest of you. Yeah, colleges, thank you very much. I do appreciate it, as I said, and yeah, we'll keep on running and stuff like that. Just a wee bit of disruption in our lives, I suppose. David Segovia says, Doc, I missed many chapters of the June Book Club. What chapters are reading for the next live stream? No problem, David. David, we're putting them all up into a playlist. And so each of the titles should say June Book Club Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. The first two videos of the June Book Club were kind of like a general introduction and a bit of a chat, so they don't have chapter numbers on them. The next chapter I've kind of that we'll be doing, this will be for Thursday. Should have been for this Thursday. Let me see. Yes, it's chapter 19. I know that the books don't have chapters. So the one that we'll be doing, David, is in this version of the book, it's page 174. And it'll be the one that we'll be looking at will be the one with the epigraph that begins, "There should be a science of discontent. People need hard times and oppression to develop psychic muscles," from the collected sayings of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. So it's not a particular, it's not as short as, oh, it's not as short as the previous chapter. So in this book, it's pages 174 to 184. It's about 10 pages. And the next chapter after that's pretty short. And then we're actually heading really to the first separation of the book. So once we've chapter 22 done, we'll be ready for book two, Muad'Dib. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, guys. As I said, I just thought I was a wee bit down the other night and just a bit deflated and tired, and I thought, oh dear, my heart wasn't in it. And I don't like sort of doing that kind of thing when it's a bit deflated, and even I remember, oh, I should have looked this up and should have checked this out. So as much as they're actiony kind of chapters at the minute that are going to drive the narrative, so there's less kind of interesting things for us to find out, I suppose. And I think that'll certainly pick up whenever we move into the second book of June Muad'Dib. So there we go. Yeah, but I've actually scribbled all that. I've got to the point where I've written chapter 18, chapter, and I've gone ahead in the book and written that down. Colleges and Cannibals. On Dogs Try, Fade the Gambler by Mick Farron, an author with a career almost Murakami in scope. Excellent. Fade the Gambler. It's so much to read and so many ideas, and I love to absorb. I must have a wee nosy again, colleges, because I've got. If I'd had my head on properly tonight, um, I actually have stuff on dogs and science fiction. I just need to go get it and get it out and refresh my memory. But I'm thinking about all sorts of things. We've got K9 and Doctor Who, Daggets and Battlestar Galactica. There's all sorts of dogs in sci-fi, and I'm a big fan of dogs. I have to say, but Rogue is an outstanding for me. It's interesting. It's one of Philip K. Dick's very, very first stories, but Rogue is absolutely outstanding. It changed my life. And I put it that, not in any mad way. I'm not a super nuts or gushy about animals, that kind of thing. I love animals. But I used to have two spiders that lived in the wing mirrors of my car. And I used to sort of try not to bother them too much. But that was, very interesting. But how animals look at things to do with humans and patterns and stuff like that. Fade the Gambler. Of course, dogs are really important in mythology, especially in Irish mythology. And there's something to do with our big dog Holly, where we found her, and how we found her is very interesting. Fade the Gambler. And of course, what am I talking about? But the probably the most famous science fiction dog of them all. And we've done a video on this, so if anybody's not checked this out, by the way, folks, we did a video about Bloods Are Over, about the continuing adventures of Vic and Blood. So of course, Blood from A Boy and His Dog is, and A Boy and His Dog, as I've said, is one of my all-time favorite science fiction films, one of my all-time favorite set of stories. We did a wee video on it recently, folks, just to finish up tonight, just to let you know. It was really the reason why we had done it was because of the very recent publication of Bloods Are Over, The Complete Adventures of A Boy and His Dog. And this is edited by Jason Davis. Now, this is the Edgware Abbey Archive edition. So that's the complete stories for the first time, annotated, edited, updated, fully complete. If you want all the Vic and Blood stuff, absolute icons of science fiction. I love them. But there you go, great. And the dog is so clever. I love I love the pair of them. They're great characters. They're not particularly nice, but they're great fun. A lot of time for them. I have to say, one of the things that I really would like to pick up at some chance is the comic book. There's some comic book versions, is it by Richard Corbin, of Bloods Are Over as well. Or sorry, some of the Vic and Blood, the continuing adventures of Vic and Blood, I think. And I'd really like to have a look at those, because excuse me, the way he drew Vic and Blood, in the illustrations, I thought was fantastic. Yeah. But there we go. Also, A Fire Upon the Deep by Werner Vinge is an introduction to the Tines, a race of dog analogues whose society is evolved around and limited by the pack instinct. Werner Vinge is one of those authors that I've read a bit of. It's kind of ended up reading more about him than any of his work, I suppose. Um, and do you know something, guys? I'm going to have to do this at some point. I've actually been thinking about it. I am a sort of secondhand book shop hunter, and I tend sometimes I buy books to put them aside. And we were talking about some of the really what I consider and hope to be really good science fiction that I have downstairs that I haven't yet read. So I have stuff by authors like Vinge and things like this, and really even picked up kind of I got given a whole lot of sort of science fiction book club type things type novels, and I've kind of a lot of the names wouldn't necessarily be super familiar to me. I'd say that if you're a lot of them are American. If you're American, they're probably household names. But I've been starting to look through these books because I'm not familiar with two of them, and I'm started with too many of them, and I've started to discover that actually a couple of them are pretty famous. So we'll maybe have a wee start to have a wee shuffle through what we have here. And in case you haven't noticed, I suppose the dog having a heart attack, wife's birthday, decorating the office, all of these things have coincided. So we're going with a bit of a mild yellow here, etc. at the minute. So hopefully, folks, we will be back with all thrusters firing and all that kind of stuff. Um, next week, and yeah, it's just been one of those weeks where what is it they say when troubles come, they come not in single spies but in battalions. Oh, yeah, there you go. It's been one of those. But we always like to stay optimistic here, I think. And our troubles aren't much compared to others in the world, I think. But listen, I'd like to say once again, I'm going to sign off, folks. A wee short one tonight. Uh, really just to pop in, I give my apologies for the book club. Let you know we'll all be back to normal next week. Thank you very much for all your kind messages, etc. And just I hadn't got around to answering any of those messages personally yet, but I will do. And just thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And very sadly for tonight, folks, we'll see you the next time we'll be back on. Will be for the June Book Club on Thursday, and we'll see you then at 9 o'clock GMT. If GMT is still a go, but it'll always be 9 o'clock wherever London is, I suppose. So thank you very much. Take care of yourselves, no matter where you are. Look after yourselves, folks, and good night. Thanks for joining me. Bye bye.